Stop pretending everything is fine. You change careers. You are supposed to be freer, more fulfilled, and yet you look at your bank statement with the same anxiety you had in your old job. Worse, you feel like you have lost everything. Not just your salary, your credibility, your security, your identity, and that little lie you tell yourself every morning. It will come, just be patient. It is destroying you, because patience does not pay the bills. In the next 10 minutes, I am going to reveal why most people who change careers fail financially. And more importantly, I am going to show you the 3 exact steps to rebuild your financial identity from scratch, so that you are never again dependent on a salary to feel secure. Hold on tight, because what I am about to tell you goes against everything you have ever been taught about money. Before you can rebuild, you have to understand what is actually happening to you. When you make a major career pivot, whether you are moving from healthcare to technology, from education to sales, or from employment to entrepreneurship, you are not just changing your daily tasks. You are changing your entire frame of reference. For years, you had a financial identity built on certainties. A fixed salary on the 25th of every month. Bonuses, benefits, job security, even if it was mostly an illusion. And then overnight, the rules change. Suddenly, you are told that you are now worth exactly what you produce. And your brain, which is essentially a machine designed to seek safety and predictability, goes into full panic mode. I call this the financial grief process. It is the loss of every financial landmark you ever knew. And this is where most people make their first and biggest mistake. They try to rebuild their old identity inside their new context. They tell themselves, I used to make $5,000 a month, so I need to make $5,000 a month immediately, or I am a failure. That is a fatal error. Why? Because you are trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Your old identity was based on time. You traded hours for dollars. Your new identity, whether you like it or not, must be based on value. You are no longer being paid for showing up. You are being paid for solving problems, creating results, and delivering impact. Think of a professional boxer who decides to become a concert pianist. If he walks into the concert hall and tries to punch the piano keys, he is not going to produce music. He is going to break the instrument. He has to accept that his physical strength, which served him so well in the ring, is almost useless on the stage. He has to learn a completely new way of using his hands, his ears, and his mind. The same applies to your finances. Your old habits of budgeting, saving, and investing were built around a predictable income stream. That system is now obsolete. You have to grieve that old system. You have to accept that the rules have changed. And you have to give yourself permission to start from a place of humility, not shame. This is the hardest part for most people. They look at their reduced income and they feel embarrassed. They compare themselves to their former colleagues who stayed in the old career. They compare themselves to their new peers who have been in this field for a decade. And that comparison is poison. It does not help you rebuild. It only keeps you stuck in the past. So the first step in rebuilding your financial identity is to formally say goodbye to your old financial self. Write down the old rules that no longer apply. Write down the old expectations that are holding you back. And then burn that piece of paper. Symbolically, literally, do whatever it takes to acknowledge that you are starting a new chapter. You cannot build a new house on an old foundation that is cracked. You have to clear the ground first. Now that you have grieved the past, you have to redefine your relationship with money itself. Most of us inherited our financial beliefs from our parents, from our culture, or from our first jobs. And those beliefs are usually a mess of contradictions. Money is the root of all evil. Money equals freedom. Money is stressful. Money is security. Money is never enough. When you pivot careers, all of these subconscious beliefs rise to the surface. Suddenly, you are faced with irregular income, or a lower starting salary, or the terrifying uncertainty of commission-based work. And your subconscious mind starts screaming at you. See, I told you this was a bad idea. You're going to run out of money. You're going to lose everything. Here is the truth that nobody tells you. Your financial identity is not about how much money you have. It is about how you think about money. It is about the story you tell yourself about abundance and scarcity. And right now, in the middle of a career pivot, that story is probably a horror story. You are the protagonist running through a dark forest with monsters chasing you. And those monsters are just old beliefs. To rebuild your financial identity, you have to consciously rewrite that story. You have to transition from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. But not in the fluffy, motivational poster way. in a practical, behavioral way. Scarcity thinking says, I have less money, therefore I must cut everything, hide, and survive. Abundance thinking says, I have less money right now, but I have more skills, more freedom, and more opportunity than ever before. How can I use these new assets to create new value? I want you to notice the difference. Scarcity shrinks you. It makes you small, defensive, and reactive. Abundance expands you. It makes you creative, proactive, and resourceful. And the beautiful thing about a career pivot is that it forces you to become resourceful. You no longer have the safety net of a predictable paycheck, so you have to start looking at your life differently. What skills do you have that are now more valuable? What networks can you tap into? What problems can you solve that other people cannot? These are your new financial assets. And they are far more valuable than a monthly salary because nobody can take them away from you. Your old paycheck was rented to you by your employer. Your new skills are owned by you. And let me be brutally honest with you. This shift does not happen overnight. It takes practice. Every day, you will be tempted to fall back into the old scarcity story. Every month, when the bills arrive, your brain will try to convince you that you made a terrible mistake. That is just fear disguised as logic. Your job is to acknowledge that fear and then choose the abundance story anyway. One practical exercise that I recommend is to create a value journal. Every single day, write down 3 ways that you added value to someone or something. It could be helping a client solve a problem. It could be learning a new skill that makes you more effective. It could be sharing an insight that helped a colleague. Over time, this journal will become undeniable evidence that you are a value creator. And that is the foundation of your new financial identity. So you have grieved the past, and you have redefined your relationship with money. Now it is time to get practical. You have to build entirely new financial systems that are designed for your new reality. And this is where most people fall apart. They try to apply their old budgeting apps, their old savings rules, and their old investment strategies to a completely new income structure. And it does not work. Your old system was built around stability. Your new system must be built around variability. If your income is now irregular, you cannot use a monthly budget that assumes a fixed deposit on the first of the month. You have to think in quarters, in seasons, or in project-based cycles. You have to become a master of cash flow management. The first system you need is what I call the survival buffer. This is not your emergency fund. This is a separate account that holds the bare minimum you need to survive for 3 months. No frills, no subscriptions, no dining out, just rent, utilities, food, and transportation. This buffer is your psychological armor. When you have this buffer, you are no longer desperate. And when you are not desperate, you make better decisions. You negotiate from a position of strength. You choose projects that excite you instead of projects that just pay the bills. The second system is the income smoothing strategy. Here is how it works. Every time you receive a payment from a client, a project, or any source of income, you do not treat it as income for this month. You treat it as income for the future. You divide that payment by the number of months until your next expected payment, and you pay yourself a monthly salary from that pool. This is how entrepreneurs and freelancers survive the feast or famine cycle. They smooth out the highs and the lows so that their lifestyle does not fluctuate wildly with their income. The third system is the learning investment. When you pivot careers, you are essentially a startup. And every startup needs to invest in research and development. That means you must allocate a percentage of every single payment you receive toward your own education, networking, and skill building. This is non-negotiable. If you stop learning, you stop growing. And if you stop growing, your income will plateau at the worst possible time. Set aside 10% of your income for learning. This includes courses, books, conferences, and even coffee meetings with people who are ahead of you in your new field. This is not an expense. It is capital expenditure. You are building the machinery that will produce your future income. The people who skip this step are the ones who stay stuck in entry-level positions. The people who invest in themselves are the ones who leapfrog ahead. The fourth system is the networking budget. This is separate from your learning investment. This is money you specifically set aside to build relationships. You need to be visible in your new industry. That means attending events, joining professional groups, and sometimes buying lunch for people who can open doors for you. This feels uncomfortable because there is no immediate return. But networking is about planting seeds that will bear fruit 6 months, 12 months, or even 2 years from now. Combine these systems. Your survival buffer, income smoothing, learning investment, and networking budget. They form the skeleton of your new financial identity, designed for uncertainty and opportunity. They protect you from the downside while positioning you for the upside. Do not skip them because they feel tedious. Your financial identity is built on structure, not inspiration. Inspiration fades. Structure endures. I want to share a real example to bring all of this to life. Let me tell you about a friend of mine. Let us call her Sarah. Sarah spent 15 years as a high school teacher. She was excellent at her job. She loved her students. But she felt stuck. She felt that she was not growing and that her financial future was limited by the salary grid of the public school system. So at the age of 41, Sarah decided to pivot into instructional design and corporate training. She had the skills. She knew how to explain complex ideas in simple ways. She knew how to manage a classroom. But she had no corporate experience and no network in that world. When she made the leap, her income dropped by 40% in the first year. She went from financial comfort to financial anxiety overnight. And she almost gave up. She told me that she spent the first 6 months crying in her car after every rejection letter. But Sarah did something smart. She did not try to pretend that everything was fine. She acknowledged the grief. She accepted that her old financial identity was gone. Then she redefined her relationship with money. Instead of looking at her reduced income as a failure, she looked at it as an investment in her future. She decided that she was paying tuition to learn a new industry. And then she built the systems. She created a survival buffer by selling her car and buying a cheaper one. She used the difference to cover 6 months of living expenses. That buffer gave her the confidence to say no to low-paying projects. She used income smoothing to manage her irregular freelance income. Every time she got paid, she divided that money over the next 3 months and paid herself a consistent salary. This reduced her stress tremendously. She invested 10% of every payment into courses on instructional technology. Within a year, she had mastered tools that her competitors were still learning. She became the expert that companies wanted. And she set aside a networking budget. She attended every conference she could afford. She introduced herself to speakers. She followed up with emails. She offered to help people for free, just to build relationships.